There's a moment that happens to almost everyone somewhere between the ages of 58 and 62. A person walks past a window, catches their own reflection, and for just a second doesn't recognize the face looking back. The skin sits differently. The eyes look tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. The posture has folded forward by maybe 2 centimeters, but those 2 centimeters change everything. And the worst part isn't the reflection itself. The worst part is the quiet voice that whispers, "This is just what aging looks like. Accept it." That voice is wrong. That voice has been wrong for a very long time. And the most painful realization of a 15-year medical practice is watching patient after patient cross the threshold of 60, believing that decline is destiny, when in reality, 80% of what they're experiencing is not aging at all. It's accumulated neglect of 3 specific physiological systems that respond to correction at any age, even at 70, even at 80. If someone had handed this information to a person at 55, the entire second half of their life would look different. That's what this video is. It's the conversation that should happen in every doctor's office on a patient's 60th birthday, and almost never does, because the healthcare system does not profit when a person ages well. It profits when they age poorly, slowly, expensively, across decades of appointments and prescriptions and procedures that manage symptoms while the root causes continue undisturbed. Subscribe to Dr. Waterling right now and hit that like button. We're working toward 1,000 subscribers, and this channel is being built on one principle: that the information which actually changes outcomes belongs to the people who need it, not locked behind 12-minute appointments and billing codes. Every subscriber moves us closer to that mission. Now, before going any further, here's a question. How old are you right now? Write it in the comments. There's a reason for asking. The protocols discussed today work differently depending on whether someone is in their late 40s preparing for this transition, in their early 60s already inside it, or in their 70s wanting to reverse what's already accumulated. Knowing which age group makes up the majority of viewers shapes what gets covered in the next videos. So drop the number in the comments. Here's what nobody explains clearly. Aging, as most people experience it, is not one process. It is 3 separate processes happening simultaneously, and they get blamed on each other constantly. The first is chronological aging, which is the actual passage of time on cellular machinery, and that one truly is unavoidable. But it accounts for less than a quarter of what most people experience as aging. The second is inflammatory aging, sometimes called inflammaging in the medical literature, and this is where the real damage happens. The third is sarcopenic aging, the silent loss of muscle mass that begins around age 30 and accelerates dramatically after 60. Inflammatory aging is the one that ages a face by 10 years in a single bad decade. Chronic low-grade inflammation, the kind that produces no obvious symptoms, slowly damages collagen fibers in the skin, oxidizes the lens of the eye, stiffens arterial walls, and degrades joint cartilage. A person doesn't feel it happening. There's no pain, no fever, no swelling visible from the outside. But inside, immune cells are releasing small bursts of inflammatory chemicals every single day, year after year, and the cumulative damage is what eventually shows up in the mirror. Where does this chronic inflammation come from? 3 sources, and this is critical. First, visceral fat. The deep abdominal fat surrounding internal organs functions as an active inflammatory organ. It releases compounds called cytokines, specifically interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha, directly into circulation. A person carrying just 10 extra pounds of visceral fat is essentially running a small inflammation factory 24 hours a day. Second, gut barrier dysfunction. The intestinal lining is only 1 cell thick. When that lining becomes permeable, a condition that affects an estimated 60% of adults over 50, bacterial fragments leak into the bloodstream and trigger immune responses constantly. Third, blood sugar volatility. Every time blood glucose spikes above 140 milligrams per deciliter and crashes again, a wave of oxidative stress sweeps through the vascular system. Now, sarcopenic aging is the one that determines whether a person spends their 70s hiking with grandchildren or struggling to rise from a chair. After age 60, muscle mass declines by 1 to 2% every single year if nothing intervenes. By age 75, a sedentary person has lost approximately 30% of the muscle mass they had at 40. And muscle is not just about strength. Muscle is the primary site of glucose disposal, meaning blood sugar regulation falls apart as muscle mass declines. Muscle produces myokines, signaling molecules that reduce inflammation throughout the entire body. Muscle is metabolic protection, immune protection, and bone protection all in one tissue. Here's the physics of what is happening inside a 60-year-old body that doesn't address these systems. The mitochondria, the small energy-producing structures inside every cell, become less efficient. They produce more free radicals and less ATP, the cellular energy currency. The hormonal cascade shifts, with growth hormone declining roughly 14% per decade after 30, testosterone in men falling about 1% per year after 40, and estrogen in women dropping sharply through menopause. The lymphatic system, which has no pump of its own and relies entirely on muscle contraction to move fluid, begins to stagnate. Cellular debris accumulates. The skin becomes thinner because fibroblast activity slows by approximately 65% between ages 30 and 70. But, and this is the most important sentence in this entire video, every one of those processes has been shown in peer-reviewed research to be at least partially reversible through specific interventions. Not theoretically, measurably. Strength training in adults over 70 has been demonstrated to restore muscle mass equivalent to 10 years younger within 16 weeks. Anti-inflammatory dietary patterns reduce circulating inflammatory markers by 20 to 40% within 8 weeks. The body, even at 60, even at 70, retains an extraordinary capacity for repair when given the correct inputs. So, why doesn't this happen? Why do most 60-year-olds continue to decline despite seeing physicians regularly and trying to do the right things? Here is where directness matters. The conventional approach to aging is built on a model that does not include reversal. Standard medical practice treats aging as a series of separate problems to be managed pharmaceutically as they arise. High blood pressure gets a pill, elevated cholesterol gets a different pill, type 2 diabetes gets a third pill. Joint pain gets an anti-inflammatory. Insomnia gets a sleep aid. Erectile dysfunction or vaginal dryness gets a hormone cream. Each prescription manages a symptom while ignoring that all of these conditions share underlying causes in inflammation, insulin resistance, and muscle loss. A person walks into a typical 15-minute office visit at 62 with complaints of fatigue, weight gain around the midsection, declining strength, and skin changes. They receive a blood pressure recheck, possibly a cholesterol panel, a recommendation to exercise more and eat less, and a prescription if any number looks abnormal. At no point in that visit does anyone perform a body composition analysis. At no point does anyone measure inflammatory markers like high-sensitivity C-reactive protein. At no point does anyone assess grip strength, which is one of the most powerful predictors of remaining lifespan. There's no billing code for comprehensive aging assessment. There's no protocol for it. So patients try things. They buy collagen powder because an advertisement said it helps skin. They take a multivitamin because it seems like the responsible thing to do. They walk 30 minutes a day because that's the recommendation everyone repeats. They cut calories. They buy expensive serums. They consider hormone replacement and either get talked out of it or talked into a one-size-fits-all protocol. And almost none of it produces the results they hoped for, because almost none of it addresses the three systems that actually drive aging. Here's where it gets critical. The interventions that genuinely change biological aging trajectory are unglamorous, inexpensive, and require consistency rather than expense. That's exactly why they don't get marketed. There's no profit in telling someone that a $10 bag of lentils will do more for their inflammatory markers than a $200 bottle of supplements. There's no advertising revenue in explaining that 12 minutes of resistance training 3 times per week will preserve more muscle than any peptide injection. The information exists in the medical literature. It just doesn't reach the people who need it. Now here is the complete protocol, organized exactly the way it should be implemented. This has 4 pillars, and skipping any one of them substantially reduces the effectiveness of the others. They work together, not separately. Pillar 1 is the anti-inflammatory nutrition framework. This is not a diet in the conventional sense. It is a pattern. Each day, the goal is to consume specific quantities of 3 categories of food that have been studied for their effect on inflammatory markers in adults over 50. The first daily target is 30 grams of fiber, with at least 10 grams coming from soluble fiber sources. Practically, this looks like the following morning preparation. Take 50 grams, roughly half a cup, of whole rolled oats. Place them in a small saucepan with 250 milliliters, about 1 cup of water. Bring to a gentle simmer over medium-low heat. Cook for 8 to 10 minutes, stirring occasionally, until the oats reach a thick, creamy consistency. In the final 2 minutes of cooking, add 1 tablespoon of ground flax seeds, 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and 1 tablespoon of chopped walnuts. Remove from heat and let sit for 2 minutes before eating. This single bowl provides approximately 12 grams of fiber, including 4 grams of beta-glucan, the soluble fiber that has been shown in a meta-analysis published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition to reduce LDL cholesterol by an average of 0.25 millimoles per liter when consumed at 3 or more grams daily. The second daily target is 100 grams of leafy green vegetables, prepared in a way that maximizes nutrient absorption. Raw spinach or kale contains compounds called oxalates that bind to minerals and reduce uptake. So instead, take 100 grams of fresh spinach, roughly 2 large handfuls, and sauté it in a wide pan over medium heat with 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil and 1 clove of crushed garlic for 3 to 4 minutes, just until wilted. The fat dramatically improves absorption of fat-soluble vitamins K, A, and E. The brief cooking reduces oxalate content by approximately 50% while preserving most of the folate. The third daily target is 40 grams of high-quality protein at each main meal, totaling roughly 120 grams per day for an average 60-year-old. This is substantially higher than the standard recommended amount, and the reason is specific. Protein synthesis in older adults requires a higher threshold of amino acids to trigger muscle building than it does in younger adults. This is called anabolic resistance, and overcoming it requires consuming approximately 30 to 40 grams of protein at a single sitting. A piece of grilled chicken breast about the size of a deck of cards provides roughly 30 grams. 3 large eggs provide 18 grams. 150 grams of Greek yogurt provides 15 grams. The protocol should reach the 40-gram threshold at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Pillar 2 is the resistance training protocol. This is non-negotiable for anyone over 60 who wants to age well. Walking, swimming, and cycling are excellent for cardiovascular health, but they do not preserve muscle. Only resistance training does that. And here's the encouraging part. It takes far less time than people assume. 3 times per week, 20 minutes per session. That is the entire commitment. The program centers on 6 fundamental movements. First, the chair-supported squat. Stand in front of a sturdy chair, feet shoulder-width apart, with the toes pointing slightly outward at about 15 degrees. Lower the body slowly over 3 seconds until the backs of the thighs lightly touch the chair seat, then rise back up over 2 seconds. Begin with 2 sets of 8 repetitions. Add 1 repetition each week until reaching 2 sets of 15. There should be a distinct sensation of work in the front of the thighs and the muscles of the buttocks, not pain in the knees or lower back. Second, the wall push. Stand facing a wall, arms extended, palms flat against the wall at shoulder height and shoulder width. Step the feet back until the body forms a slight diagonal line, heels still on the floor. Lower the chest toward the wall over 3 seconds, keeping the body in one straight line from heels to head, then push back over 2 seconds. 2 sets of 10 repetitions to start, progressing to 2 sets of 20 over 6 weeks. Third, the bent over row using a simple resistance band looped under both feet. Hold one handle in each hand, hinge forward at the hips until the torso is at about 45 degrees, and pull the handles toward the lower ribs. The elbows should travel backward, not outward. 2 sets of 12 repetitions. The sensation should be distinct work between the shoulder blades. Fourth, the supine hip bridge. Lie on the back, knees bent, feet flat on the floor about hip width apart. Press through the heels and lift the hips toward the ceiling until the body forms a straight line from the knees to the shoulders. Hold the top position for 2 seconds, then lower over 3 seconds. 2 sets of 15 repetitions. This is the single most important exercise for protecting the lower back and maintaining the ability to rise easily from a seated position. Fifth, the seated overhead press with light weights, beginning with 1 to 2 kilogram dumbbells or even filled water bottles. Sit upright on a chair with back support, hold the weights at shoulder height with palms facing forward, and press straight overhead until the arms are nearly fully extended. 2 sets of 10 repetitions. Sixth, the standing calf raise. Stand near a counter or sturdy chair for light balance support, feet hip width apart. Rise up onto the balls of the feet over 2 seconds, hold at the top for 1 second, then lower over 3 seconds. 2 sets of 15 repetitions. This exercise serves a dual purpose. It builds calf strength, and the rhythmic contraction acts as a venous pump that moves blood and lymphatic fluid upward against gravity, reducing the leg swelling that affects so many adults over 60. The entire sequence takes approximately 20 minutes, including brief rest periods. 3 sessions per week, with at least 1 day of rest between sessions. Within 2 weeks, sleep quality improves noticeably. Within 4 weeks, the ability to rise from low chairs and climb stairs improves measurably. Within 12 weeks, grip strength increases, balance improves, and body composition shifts even without weight change. Pillar 3 is the sleep and circadian protocol, which is where most anti-aging efforts quietly fail. Growth hormone, the body's primary repair hormone, is released during deep sleep stages. Cortisol, the stress hormone that breaks down muscle and accelerates aging when chronically elevated, follows a circadian rhythm that depends on light exposure timing. Almost everyone over 60 has disrupted both of these patterns. The corrective protocol is specific. Within 30 minutes of waking, expose the eyes to natural outdoor light for 10 minutes, not through a window, outside. Even on a cloudy day, outdoor light delivers 10,000 lux compared to roughly 500 lux indoors. This single intervention resets the master circadian clock and improves sleep onset that same night. Stop consuming caffeine by noon. Caffeine has a half-life of approximately 6 hours, meaning a cup of coffee at 2 in the afternoon still has a quarter of its stimulant effect circulating at 2 in the morning. After 60, caffeine clearance slows further. Finish all eating by 3 hours before bedtime. The digestive process raises core body temperature, and falling asleep requires a core temperature drop of approximately 0.5 degrees Celsius. Pillar 4 is the inflammation reduction practices that operate outside of nutrition and exercise. 2 specific habits matter most. First, 20 minutes of diaphragmatic breathing daily, ideally split into 2 10-minute sessions. Sit upright, place one hand on the chest and one on the belly, and breathe so that only the belly hand rises. Inhale through the nose for 4 seconds, hold for 2 seconds, exhale through the mouth for 6 seconds. This pattern activates the parasympathetic nervous system and has been shown to reduce circulating inflammatory markers within 2 weeks of consistent practice. Second, exposure to mild cold once daily. This does not require ice baths. A 2-minute cold finish at the end of a normal shower, water as cold as comfortably tolerable, produces measurable increases in norepinephrine and brown fat activation. Brown fat is metabolically active tissue that burns calories to produce heat and tends to decline with age unless actively stimulated. Now, before continuing, a critical safety note. If a person has unstable cardiovascular disease, uncontrolled high blood pressure, or recent surgery, the cold exposure should be discussed with a physician first. The exercise protocol assumes the absence of acute injury and unstable cardiac conditions. Anyone taking blood pressure medication, blood thinners, or diabetes medications should know that these lifestyle interventions are powerful enough to require medication adjustment over time. That is a good problem, but it must be managed by the prescribing physician. Never discontinue medications based on a video. Work with the doctor to monitor response and adjust doses as the body changes. And know these specific symptoms that require immediate medical evaluation rather than home protocols. Sudden severe chest pain or pressure, especially with sweating or shortness of breath. Sudden one-sided weakness, facial drooping, or difficulty speaking. Severe abdominal pain that comes on suddenly and does not ease. Blood in the urine or stool without other explanation. Any of these symptoms warrants emergency care, not a video, not a protocol, not waiting until morning. Consider what this actually looks like in a real patient. Margaret was 63 when she came in for a consultation. She had gained 18 pounds over the previous 6 years, mostly around the abdomen. Her sleep had deteriorated with 2 or 3 awakenings per night. Her energy was poor enough that she had stopped gardening, an activity she had loved for 30 years. She had seen her primary care physician multiple times. The recommendations had been to eat less, walk more, and consider a sleep aid. She had tried collagen supplements, a popular probiotic, and 3 different weight loss approaches without sustained results. Her high-sensitivity C-reactive protein, when finally measured, came in at 4.8 milligrams per liter, indicating significant chronic inflammation. Her grip strength was at the 20th percentile for her age. Implementation began with the 4 pillars in stepwise fashion. Week 1 introduced the breakfast protocol and the morning light exposure. Week 2 added the resistance training, beginning with just 2 sessions and a reduced repetition count. Week 3 added the evening eating cutoff and the breathing practice. Week 4 added the cold exposure and the leafy green target. By week 8, her sleep had consolidated to a single awakening most nights. By week 12, she had lost 11 pounds, and a body composition reassessment showed that 14 of those pounds were fat and 3 pounds were muscle gained. Her C-reactive protein had dropped to 1.9. By week 20, she was back in her garden, and grip strength had improved to the 45th percentile for her age. Nothing exotic, nothing expensive, 4 pillars applied consistently. Here is the weekly schedule to implement everything. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday include the 20-minute resistance training session, ideally in the morning. Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday include a 30 to 45-minute walk at a pace brisk enough that conversation requires slight effort. Sunday is full recovery with only gentle movement and the breathing practice. Every day, without exception, includes 10 minutes of morning outdoor light within 30 minutes of waking, the fiber and protein targets at meals, the noon caffeine cutoff, the 3-hour eating cutoff before bed, the 20 minutes of diaphragmatic breathing split into 2 sessions, and the brief cold shower finish. Expectations matter. Within the first week, sleep improves. Within 2 to 3 weeks, energy improves and morning stiffness decreases. Within 6 to 8 weeks, body composition begins to shift visibly and inflammatory markers drop measurably on lab testing. Within 3 to 4 months, the changes become substantial enough that family members comment without prompting. Within a year, the trajectory of aging has fundamentally bent in a different direction. The single greatest regret of patients who reach 75 or 80 in poor health is not that they tried interventions and they failed. It is that they accepted decline as inevitable when it was not. The best anti-aging advice anyone could have heard at 55, at 60, at 65 is that the body retains an extraordinary capacity for repair when given the correct inputs in the correct sequence. Most of what gets blamed on age is actually accumulated inflammation, lost muscle, and disrupted circadian rhythm, and all three respond to intervention. If this video helped, send it to someone who matters. A spouse who has been quietly giving up, a friend who keeps saying they're too old for this, a parent who has stopped trying. They may have just been waiting for someone to tell them the truth, that 60 is not the end of vitality. It is, with the right approach, the beginning of the most stable, capable, and grounded decades of an entire life. Subscribe to Dr. Waterling, hit the like button, help reach 1,000 subscribers so this information continues reaching the people who need it most, and don't forget to drop the age in the comments. The next videos depend on knowing who is watching.